This is Still a Part of Us, a podcast where mom and dad share the story of their children who are stillborn or who have died in infancy. I'm Lee Red, and in this episode of advice and encouragement from a lost dad, I chat with Jeff, whose son was diagnosed with bilateral renal agenesis and passed away shortly after birth. By the way, you can hear both Jeff and his wife Bree's episode about the birth of their child on episode 1.1 and 1.3. Today we discuss with Jeff how planting a tree has really helped him, and also to say something if you are friends or family of a parent who have lost a child. As a word of caution to our listeners, this discussion contains emotional triggers of stillbirth and infant loss. Please keep yourself emotionally and mentally healthy and seek help if needed. We hope this helps someone out there.
Hey guys, we felt like this podcast has been something we've needed to do since our son Brandon passed away. It takes time and money to produce the show, and we hope we can do it long term because we know it'll help others.
If you feel this show has been beneficial to you or somebody you love, please consider becoming a patron of the show for a few dollars a month. You do get the warm fuzzies of helping us and supporting the show, and there are some other pretty cool bonuses, including our daughter telling stories. Go to our website, stillapartofus.com, to get more details. Thanks.
This last year has been taxing on each of us and on our relationship as a couple, and we realized a few months after our son passed away that if we didn't tend to it, we would get carried away in our grief and drift apart. So we actually made a commitment to each other that we wouldn't neglect our relationship, and we attended a Utah date night and had a night out where we laughed, we had some entertainment, but we also learned from the best relationship experts out there.
And we're excited that the Gottmans, Dr. John and Julie Gottman, the love experts, are speaking at the upcoming Utah date night.
It's so exciting.
Join us, because we're going to be there.
Yeah, we are.
Wednesday, September 18th in the evening from 6:30 to 9:30 at Cottonwood High School in Utah. It's a special night, and you're going to be hearing from a couple people. First, I think from Dr. Laura Heck, who's a certified Gottman therapist.
I really like her. I listen to a podcast that she does, so I'm excited for her too.
And also Dr. and Dr. Gottman. Dr. and Dr. Gottman.
The Gottmans will be there.
If you're dating, if you're engaged, if you're newlywed, or if you've been married for a long time, like Winter and I, you can learn something from the Gottmans. They make relationships better and stronger, especially if you're experiencing a major loss, like many of our listeners have.
So go to stillapartofus.com/Utah date night for the link to sign up. If you use our link, this helps support the podcast and all we're trying to do to help others. Tickets are $75 a couple or $44 for a single ticket. And as a bonus from the Gottmans, they are actually giving each couple a copy of their newest book, 8 Dates. Once again, go to stillapartofus.com/Utah date night. And we hope to see you there.
See you there.
My name is Jeff, and I'm talking about my son, the loss of my son, little Jeff. And we had 6 hours with him before he passed, and before he was born, and while he was alive, and then after he passed, we had planned certain things to do that we would be able to keep for us to have tokens to remember and special objects, few of which are the feet prints. We bought a baby lotion to put on him that that would give a smell that we could have. And I mean, as weird as that sounds, it's something you can a different sense to remember. We wrote letters that we buried with him, but photocopied so that we can go back and read what we sent with him and also add to in the future for our own personal records. And after, this isn't necessarily a special object, but we planted a tree for little Jeff in our front yard to watch grow, and to it's a maple tree, so it'll probably get about 35-40 feet high and 20 to 25 feet wide, and we'll be able to hang out in the shade of little Jeff's tree. It's an autumn blaze maple tree, and it's one of the names on it underneath autumn blaze is Jeffers Red, and saw that in the nursery when we were picking out a tree to do this, and it was, one of those things where it's like, well, it's the first tree you look at, and yeah, I said Jeffers Red, and it wasn't something that I was about to turn down, and that was it. We went and grabbed it and got in line. That was little Jeff's tree. And it's been cool to watch that grow over the past 2 months that we planted it. And now he passed away about 5 months ago, maybe 6, almost 6. And just to have these little things to, continue having him as a part of our daily routine or our daily life has been very helpful for us in our grieving process and aftermath of everything. We don't feel like we're ever going to be completely, whole from this, from this experience, but we know that like it doesn't get easier, but it gets a little less hard, if that makes sense, especially when you continue to make him a part of your daily life. And sometimes for me, I like to keep my mind busy, and whether that's yard work or doing some sort of project, or I'd mentioned eBay, listing something on eBay or something like that. Just keep kind of get that kind of give your mind a little bit of a break onto something else has been something that's helped me. Obviously not forget, but to give your mind a rest and to do something else, especially when I have downtime. It's very easy for me to instantly go to a sad place of thought, being like, I miss my son, and life is hard. And so, and I think that's good. I think it's good to do that. But for me, sometimes I need to know that I can go there, and then, I can choose to go there and not. Does that make sense? So if I choose to cry, and I choose to go sit by his spot in his shade, or at his grave, then I go and I cry, and I spend that time, because we need that release. But there's times where I can kind of flex a little bit and do something else while, keep my mind moving, and not let like that be a ruling factor on like my mood or my day. It actually is very helpful to talk about little Jeff. That's, for me, it's very therapeutic, and it's helpful when people ask questions. When they, at first it was hard to, someone to ask you like, oh, how many kids do you have? And I mean, of course if they're asking that, they typically don't know that you've gone through what you've gone through. But it is hard to see the look on their face when you say, I have 2 kids, one's 2.5 and one just passed away in January, and they, jaws hit the floor, and they immediately backpedal and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And you just tell them like, I'm proud that, little Jeff's my son. So I mean, like, you asked, I'm gonna answer your question truthfully. I'm not gonna say I just have 1 kid, because I have 2. Just because one's not with me doesn't mean that I can't count him as my child. So I think that's something I feel like is one thing maybe not to do is in those scenarios for individuals that, that ask how many kids do you have, and then are told, one's X and then one's passed away, and don't backpedal and try to like take away the question, because for that person like me, it might be therapeutic to talk about him. I don't want to like erase the conversation or where it could go, because it could be helpful to me. So that's something not to do. And something to do is to, as awkward as it is, I mean, I feel like, especially if you're like really, really good friends or you're family with the individual, like even if it's awkward, just say anything. It's almost just, it's better to fight through an awkward moment than to not ever have any sort of moment. So if you know somebody's going through it, you know, at least say something. There's plenty of questions that you shouldn't ask or shouldn't like pry into details, but just show effort into showing that you care for that individual and what they're going through. I think giving space sometimes hurts more than it helps, especially from individuals that you know are your like really good friends or your, you know, closer family.
I would personally like to thank Jeff for coming on the podcast and discussing what grief and mourning has looked like for him. This has helped me personally, talking about our children, and I know it will help other lost parents out there, and also help those who are supporting those parents. Head over to the website, stillapartofus.com, and there you can find the show notes, including a full transcript of this interview and any resources that were mentioned. There you will also be able to sign up for our short and helpful email newsletter, and you could learn how you can become a patron and support the work it takes to produce this show. And lastly, there you can find out how to get in touch with us if you would like to share your child's story on the show. The show was produced and edited by Winter and Lee Red. Thanks to Josh Woodward for letting us use his song, Vanishing Note. You can find him at joshwoodward.com. Subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why would you do this? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they are still a part of us.